Monday, May 15th, 2023. It is 8:54 a.m. Good morning. Would the staff at the State Penitentiary please introduce yourself for the record?
Rochelle Ambo, Deputy Warden.
Regional Library Classification.
Jane Babel, offender record.
Cindy Park, Nurse Practitioner.
Anya Faust, hospice nurse.
All right, thank you. And we have our first case. That's Mr. Burton. Good morning, Mr. Burton.
Go ahead and talk. Good morning.
Morning, sir. Could you introduce yourself? Tell us your name and your DOC number.
Fritz Burton, 105246.
All right, and you're here this morning, Mr. Burton, seeking a commutation of your sentence. You were sentenced in 1984 to a life sentence for a second-degree murder in Orleans Parish. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Your case this morning has been assigned to Mr. Pete Freeman, seated to my far right. Would you answer his question?
Good morning, Mr. Burton. How old are you?
66.
Okay, and how long have you been in jail on this charge?
40 years and a half.
Okay, and what's your educational level?
Got my GED.
Okay, you got it while you was incarcerated?
I had to get it when I was joining the military. I had to have it to get in the military.
Okay, tell me what happened with the military. Says you in AWOL. Did you leave without permission?
Well, they would. I guess I could say that because I had sent somebody back home to come up there where I was at, and they wouldn't let me do it. They wouldn't let me borrow no money, so I had to lay there, and I did go AWOL. But
All right. I've read your statement, and so have my colleagues on this instant offense. Just give me a brief statement of what was going on in your life at that time, and why did you commit that offense?
Well, I was going out to meet a friend of mine, and we were supposed to go somewhere, but we ended up not doing it. And we got mixed up in that crime. If I could get back in time, I'd change it.
I understand that, but how did you get mixed up in the crime? What was your part in the crime?
Well, I kind of like help. Well, I did help him. But I was holding a pillar over one person's face.
Okay, were you on drugs, alcohol back then?
No, sir.
So what was your reasoning behind committing the crime? Was it financial? Was it just out of meanness? I mean, what was your reasoning for doing that to that lady?
You get them on the phone.
Yeah.
I think we might have it.
All right, there we go. Good, thank you. Mr. Burton, sorry about that. We had some technical, well, they had technical issues on that end. But we'll go ahead and continue. Would you, answer Mr. Freeman?
Okay, Mr. Burton, I don't know if you remember my question, but I was trying to get what motivated this crime? Why did y'all do it?
Well, it was done because of, a house and some money and stuff like that.
Y'all were trying to get control of her house and,
Well, when we did, it wasn't planned, it just happened like that. And, when we finished, and we left, I felt kind of bad, well, not kind of, I did feel bad. Because it was something I had never done. And I've been punishing myself for about 40 years and a half.
okay, looking at the Leo, you got, no comment from the judge. No comment from the district attorney's office, which is normal, it's all blanket, same thing with the sheriff. Opposed is the chief, unopposed is your niece, Tanya Burton, but she states that she could not provide you housing. And also your brother's unopposed, but he would rather see you in a halfway house. Opposed is the victim's niece, which she's strongly opposed. Where will you plan on staying if you get out?
I'd like to go to a nursing home.
Okay,
Yes.
is there anything set up for him to go to a nursing home?
Yes, sir. We have arranged for him to be placed in River Oaks if he should get approved for parole. He, last year he became acutely ill and he actually became very confused for a lengthy period of time, secondary to being septic from the rhinovirus. And I believe the last time he came to talk to you, he was unable to even say very much. I wasn't here at that time, but I believe that that's when he was trying to recover from the altered mental status from the rhinovirus and just being septic and sick for so long. Since then, we've diagnosed him with pretty advanced Parkinson's disease. And there's also a good chance that at that time, because his Parkinson's disease is very advanced, that he was a little confused because of that also. But we've now got him on medications and he's improved significantly. He does have this shuffling gait when he walks, but he is able to walk, bathe himself, feed himself. But he is very mentally slow. He'd be a good candidate for a nursing home. So if he should be placed in a nursing home, should be approved, we do have nursing home arranged for him. He has been living in the skilled nursing unit, though, in the near future, because the medicines for Parkinson's have worked much better than we anticipated. He will be going to the assisted living dorm if he should continue to stay here.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, thank you. Mr. Burton, I've seen you taking quite a few classes, and you've done well with your classes. What class sticks out the most for you? Which one you learn the most from?
Victim's rights.
Okay, looking at that. Okay, what did you learn from victim awareness?
Well, I learned that things happen in crazy ways sometimes. And they have a lot of controversy about what causes this and what causes that. And things just get a little on the wacky side sometimes.
You had an armed robbery back in 78. What was that about? Do you recall?
An armed robbery?
Yeah, it was dismissed, but what happened in that instance?
Well, I've never been arrested for armed robbery.
All right, you have a low risk. It says prior to your illness, you were working on the farm. What was your job when you was working at Angola?
I was on the range crew, working for the range crew.
You have 67 write-ups. Your last write-up was 10/29/14 was your last write-up. Looks like it was a contraband. What was the contraband?
I'm not sure.
Warden, show what the contraband was?
Positive for THC.
Positive THC. Okay, I thought you said you never used drugs.
I didn't when I was in the free world, and I haven't up here. I don't like really taking drugs because I know what it do to people. But I can't use that as an excuse.
I have no further questions.
All right, is there anything else, Ms. Parks, that you'd like to share with us regarding his medical condition?
No, ma'am.
Okay, Warden Ambo, any comments?
No, ma'am, I don't have any.
Great. Mr. Burton, is there, anything you'd like to say to us before we vote?
Well, I've been wanting to get around my family again. Well, I'll be able to talk to them, just to read on. I don't blame them for them wanting me to stay with them because they look at it the fact that if I would have been with them in these past few years, I'd be to them, I'd be holding them down, dragging them down, or being reliability on them. And I didn't want to do that to cause them no pain.
All right, well, thank you, sir. This is what prepared.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Freeman.
Okay, Mr. Burton, you served 41 years in prison, which is a long time. I do think that you're no risk to the public. I grant you computation to 60 years. And as a condition of release, I order you to go to a nursing home approved by DOC and not to leave that nursing home unless approved by DOC.
Mr. Richard.
Mr. Burton, based on overwhelming opposition from the victim's family, opposition from law enforcement, the nature of the crime, I consider you a risk to public safety. Therefore, I'm going to deny your request.
Mrs. Jackson.
All right, after hearing from the medical staff, Mr. Burton, it's clear that you are reaching the point that you cannot care for yourself effectively. You have been in prison for over 40 years. and because of your health, my vote would be recommendation. What was the 60 years? But that you be released only to a nursing home, and that you would have to remain there for the duration of your. Mr. Novella.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. My vote would be likewise the same as vote Mr. Freeman. and Ms. Jensen.
Mr. Burton, you've received 3 votes to commute your sentence to 60 years and 1 vote to deny based on the opposition that was expressed. My vote today also is to deny your application for clemency. I think you're in a spot now where you're receiving excellent care, which is probably the best place for you. The reason for my denial is that plus the very strong and adamant opposition that's been expressed. So today, sir, your application for clemency has been denied. Good luck to you.
You understand?
The moment he realizes he's probably going to die in prison, I was actually surprised, totally caught off guard. I thought that this was a shoo-in. I thought they were going to let him out. And because of the idea that we've seen them let out, I think people who have committed more horrible crimes and who are more invalid, and the belief that the DOC has some type of order to expel, so to speak, inmates that are expensive, end of life expensive inmates. So I'm actually really caught off guard. We didn't have family members show up and make statements. They just made written statements. Is it because he had, no other kinds of support? Is it because, I don't know. I don't know why it is in this case they said that, but in other cases, maybe because he didn't have the parole project. Well, let's go over his crime, and then after this, we can do another hearing. If we have time, I think we will. So this is his appeal. Now, it was a crime that involved multiple people, so he was like an accessory. So this is Ethel Lamberts was convicted of second-degree accessory to life imprisonment, and then Lambertus was indicted with Fritz Burton and Kevin at her trial, and her trial was severed. Burton and Rodriguez were also convicted of being principals. In December 1981, Lambertus and his teenage daughter, Vicky, moved, and remember, his name is Fritz Burton. So Vicky moved into the home of an elderly invalid, Miss Floyd Brown, to take care of her. Rodriguez, Vicky's boyfriend, and Burton soon took up residence with him. So basically, a woman and her teenage daughter move into a home with Miss Floyd Brown to take care of her. But then all of a sudden, and this is kind of scary how this can happen, she invited her Vicky's boyfriend. So Vicky was a teenage daughter. Vicky moved her boyfriend into her house. So poor Miss Floyd Brown, she's probably like, wait a minute, I didn't sign up for this. And Burton soon took up residence with them. Now, is Burton her daughter's boyfriend? I'm guessing. Miss Brown was rarely seen after the four moved into the house. Miss Cynthia Hobbs, the next door neighbor, tried to visit Miss Brown in the spring, but Lambertus told her that the invalid was asleep. So they somehow get there to move in. It's supposed to be a mother and a daughter. Then all of a sudden, two more people move in. And then the neighbor, no one sees her again, basically. Miss Hobbs finally reached Miss Brown by phone and noticed that she sounded weak or sleepy. Vicky and Rodriguez used the shed behind the Brown home as a bedroom, and Lambertus and Burton frequently went out drinking together. Vicky testified that her mother drank often and had a bad temper when she was intoxicated. She said that her mother and Miss Brown had several arguments over money, and a will bequeathing the Brown home to Lambertus was prepared by her mother's attorney. 10 days, oh, that's not obvious, like a will was made, okay. 10 days before her death, Miss Brown locked everyone out of the house. So it seems that Miss Brown wasn't, like, you know, when they use the word invalid, I think of someone who's kind of incapacitated, but it seems that she still has her whereabouts around her, right? Because 10 days before, she locks everyone out of the house. So something happens where she's like, I'm done. You're out. She locks everyone out. So Burton and Rodrigo, was I calling him Rodriguez? Broke down the door and shoved her while she was seated in her wheelchair. Later that day, Lambertus slapped Miss Brown because she hit her with a chair leg. So she's feisty, you know? She actually locks them out. They break in. She hits them with the chair leg, like, get out of here. They push her in a wheelchair. Miss Hobbs said until Lambertus moved in, Miss Brown, okay, then this is like the neighbor. Miss Hobbs said until they moved in, her appearance was immaculate. A week before Miss Brown passed away, Miss Hobbs said she looked very unkempt. The following day, Miss Hobbs and Vicky heard screaming, breaking glass, and a pounding sound coming from Miss Brown's room. Vicky went inside and saw her mother put sleeping pills in orange juice and was told not to worry because it would be over soon. Wow. Later, Miss Hobbs saw Lambertus, Rodriguez, and Burton each go to the shed. That evening, Miss Hobbs called the police and saw them speak to Lambertus and leave. Lambertus told Hobbs that she was tired of living with Miss Brown. Lambertus testified that on the morning prior to the victim's unliving, Burton, suffering from a hangover, was awakened by Miss Brown pounding on her door. Lambertus said she saw Burton smothering. Whoa. So prior to the victim, Burton, suffering from a hangover, was awakened by Miss Brown pounding on her door. Lamberton says she saw Burton. So Burton is our inmate who we've seen, right? Fritz Burton. Smothering Miss Brown with a pillow while he repeatedly punched and slapped her. Yeah, he's an evil dude. Wow. It's like an old woman in a wheelchair and you can have that kind of violence towards her. Lambertus stated that she was concerned about Miss Brown's condition and discovered the unalive body. Whoops, too late, right? Early the following morning. The idea that YouTube can strike you for saying that is just so absurd. Like, if there's one thing I could do, it would be to sit down with these YouTube people and say, explain it to me, bro. I like the head of YouTube, whatever, they send us in their dashboard the videos, like one video a week where they talk about like new features or new things, and they're all like, you know, they're like, hello YouTubers, And it's like, don't hello me. Anyways, later in the day, Miss Hobbs observed Lambertus staggering in the yard and testified that she appeared very, very high. Lambertus told her she had taken half a bottle of sleeping pills that evening. Burton and Rodriguez told Vicky Miss Brown's early demise, and she confided in Miss Hobbs, who called the police. Lambertus initially refused to admit that the officer, stating, "Not again. I am tired of being bothered." She told the police that there was nothing wrong, but would not let them in because there was a lady sleeping inside. So the police are there, and she's like, "Oh, well, oh no, what are we gonna do now? No, you can't come in. There's a lady sleeping." The officer asked again for admittance, and Lambertus reluctantly said, "Okay, come on in. She's not alive." Wow. You know, the board, I think, was also upset that he obviously lied. This guy had to have been on something serious, right? And then he has to write up for being on something, and his excuse is, hold on. Mic check. And his excuse is, oh, I've never done anything until I was locked up in prison. It's like, you can't possibly have this type of, be this, like, out of your mind if you're not on something. Particularly, you would think METH. Miss Brown's nude body was bruised from her head to her toe. Head to her foot. At the coroner testified that she was unalived of multiple injuries caused by blows with a blunt instrument. There were 4 deep cuts on her shoulder. A butcher knife and a claw hammer were found in their bedroom. False teeth, broken mirror, and a slashed photo of the victims were discovered in a trash pile in front of the residence. Lambertus contends it was error to admit 2 of her oral statements. The first, "Okay, come on in. She's unalive." Oh, this is now part of the appeal. So they're saying that it's an error to admit her first oral statements, "Come on in, she's unalive," was made while police were attempting to gain admittance to the home. Lambertus claimed she was in custody the moment she opened the door, and response was inadmissible. Basically, she's stating that, hey, it's not fair to use that in court, because she wanted to go with the defense to say, I didn't know she was unalive. Oh, man. What animals? They say it was an error to admit the knife, hammer, false teeth, broken mirror, and photograph the evidence because they were seized during a warrantless search to the house. She argues the search was not supported by the exception. She's basically saying, I let them in, but no, I didn't feel I had a right to let them in. So everything you found is not admissible. Good luck with that. Good luck with that. They obviously denied it. And yeah, I think maybe we have a little bit more of insight into why the board does not like people that harm older people. I think the board, being all closer to the age of the victim, I think they're extra sensitive to it. It's not the first time we've seen them fall down hard. And then you might argue sending this man to an old age home is dangerous. Like Mr. O'Shea said, he's a danger to society. He looks physically fit. He might be manipulating the board, you know? Like, he doesn't look totally, but I mean, they do say he's sick, and maybe it's a mix, or maybe you just don't need to be that strong if you were to go and hurt someone else laying in a bed next to you who's in worse shape than you are, and they just feel that there's something, he's just too dangerous. But it did surprise me when they initially denied him. Maybe reading into this gives a little bit more context. We can do another hearing. Let's see which one to do. It is, I have like a spreadsheet here. It's on the same YouTube. Hold on one second while we do that. And while I look for it, tell me. Okay, I don't think I've seen this, so I don't know what we're going to expect. So let's see. All right. Let's go. I don't know how long this is. Let's.
Mr. Ruffins, good afternoon. Would you introduce yourself? Tell us your name and DOC number, please.
My name is Carl Ruffin. My DOC number is 412-788.
All right, Mr. Ruffins, let me just, and you're represented by counsel. Counsel, would you introduce yourself, please?
Good afternoon, Ms. Granatza. Jane Hogan on behalf of Carl Ruffins, and with the committee's approval, I'll make a brief statement at the end of the hearing.
Okay, thank you. And let me acknowledge the folks who've joined us. We have Ms. Heidi Buckle, Talia Goodlow, and there at the penitentiary, we have Carlisha Nash, Joseph Nash, Brenda Nash, Laurish Nash, James Nash, Zaniel Atkins, and Zach. I don't know Zach's last name. What is Zach's last name?
Zach Seabird. Oh,
Could you spell that for me?
Seabird. Ma'am,
Spell that last name.
SYBURD.
Seaburn. Okay. All right, and my information is that we have the parole project will be speaking on your behalf, Joseph and James Nash, and Mr. Atkins.
Yes, we will be having the parole project besides my attorney, my brother James, and also my brother Joseph. Those will be the only people speaking. If you don't mind.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Good deal. Thank you. So first, let me just read some identifying information and we'll get started. Your case has been assigned to Mr. Freeman, so I'll turn it over to him when after you confirm this information. So Carl Ruffins, your DOC is 412-788. You're seeking a commutation of your sentence. You were sentenced in February 1999 to a life sentence for a second-degree murder conviction in the first judicial district in Caddo Parish. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. All those things are correct.
All right, Mr. Freeman.
Okay, Mr. Ruffin, how old are you currently?
I am currently 46. I'll be 47 in October.
Okay, and how long have you served on this charge?
I served as of August the 9th of this year, 25 years.
Do you have your GED or high school diploma?
Yes, sir. I do have a GED.
Okay, did you obtain it while you was in prison or before you came?
I actually obtained my GED in 1996 from Ouachita, Arkansas. I was in Job Corps.
Okay, Mr. Ruffin, the victim in this case was Donald Reed. Did you know Donald before y'all had y'all altercation?
No, sir. I do not know Mr. Donald Reed before we had an altercation.
Okay, tell me what went on. Tell me exactly, because it's kind of confusing.
Yes,
all
sir.
the drive, all turning around, coming back, him almost hitting the car with the bike. Tell me exactly what happened and tell me the truth. Okay, today's the day.
Yes, sir. On August the 8th of 1998, Montgomery Williams was the driver. Me and Jerome Atkins were passengers. I was the front seat passenger. Montgomery Williams was making a right turn. At the same time, simultaneously, Mr. Donald Reed was crossing the intersection on a bike. I do not know exactly if he was hit or not. But what I do know is it looked like he was possibly hit. He drops the bike, he looks angry. Then Montgomery Williams gets out the car. It looks like those two argue. He gets back in the car, we drive down the street. He turns around almost exactly to the spot he almost hit the guy. He ducks down in the seat. At that point, Mr. Donald Reed starts walking up to the passenger side of the car from the front view. And I did one of the most regretful things I could ever. Yeah, that's a car. I said,
So at that time, you shot Mr. Reed, correct? So the argument wasn't between you two, I mean, but you did get out the car and you shot. And you admit to that.
Yes, sir.
And quite frankly, there wasn't much reasoning behind the shooting on your part, correct? Were you on any drugs, alcohol at that time?
Yes, sir, I was. I was drinking at night. I was smoking weed. I was using cocaine.
How long had you used weed and cocaine? Since what age?
Weed, I've been using them since probably about the age of 15. Cocaine was something relatively new.
All right. Have you done any classes or received any treatment for your drugs?
Yes, sir, I have.
And what classes have you taken?
I've taken AA. I've taken Living in Balance. 1 and 2. I've taken substance abuse. I do weekly community AA twice a week in the education building.
Okay, what have you these classes in AA?
Excuse me, I didn't hear you, sir.
What have you learned from these classes in your AA meetings?
I learned that I will always be an addict. I learned that I will always struggle with my addiction. I learned that first I had to realize that my life was unmanageable. And then I had to believe that there was a higher power. I had to turn it over to that higher power. And I've done those things. I also believe that I need community service. I need somebody to try to make it right.
All right. The judge and the DA and the sheriff are opposed, which is normal. The offender's, family, Miss Eloise Lewis, she's opposed, that's his mother. And your family, James Nash, your brother, is unopposed. And said he will help you however he can when you get out. Did you have any work history prior to committing this offense? Were you working?
Not at the time. At the time I was not working. I do have a, sorry?
I say, go ahead. Have you ever worked?
Yes, sir, I have. I did a lot of range of jobs, mainly fast food services. I also did a few construction type of jobs. I worked as a painter. One of the last jobs I had, I was a certified asbestos worker.
Okay. What is going to be your sobriety plan when you get out? How are you going to stay sober? It's to be the first thing you do to try to make sure that you stay sober.
One of the first things I do to try to make sure that I stay sober, I would like to continue my sobriety meetings that I could have right here in prison. My brother Joseph, he's contacted a couple of places in which I will be able to attend. I also, because I do go to weekly AA meetings up here, I also talked to one of the guys, Carl, and he assisted me by providing 3 addresses within 9-mile radius to where my brother would be staying in Fort Nate, Texas.
You're low risk, minimum custody. You've had 47 disciplinary reports. The last one was in 2018. It was a lower court report. Your last major report was in 2016. Was that a sex offense?
Yes, sir, it actually was.
So what family member are you going to live with after you get out?
I will be living, sir,
What's your plans?
I'll be living with Mr. Joseph Nash, which is my youngest brother. He lives in Fort Nate, Texas. I'll be working there, doing maintenance work with his boss, Mr. Zach Zerud, if I'm correct, his last name is pronounced.
Yeah, you're gonna go to the parole project first?
Yes, sir. The parole project has said that they would take me on to help get me reacclimated into society.
Will y'all keep him until interstate compact is approved?
Yes, sir, we would.
Thank you. Okay, just give me I see you taking victim awareness. What did you learn in victim awareness?
Victim awareness taught me about role and responsibility. That no matter what a role somebody else may have played, regardless if it was the victim or was somebody else inside, responsibility was mine in decision making, ultimately. Victim awareness also taught me about my own denials that I had. Because at one time, I honestly believed that somehow or another, that by denying things, that I can excuse myself from them. Victim awareness also speaks about having healthy boundaries. That's something that I lacked often in life, is having healthy boundaries, because I found myself sometimes leaning just because somebody asked me to do, overextending myself, as you might say. I actually find victim awareness a very profound teaching. It's what actually got me to see what my responsibility was for and who it was to. I now understand that every decision and action I make in life. I am the ultimate decision maker, regardless to what happens, regardless if I'm using drugs, regardless if I'm angry, regardless of how I may feel about what the other person may do. That in actuality, no life is worth taking.
So in other words, what would you tell the victim's family if you had a chance to speak with them?
I would tell the victim family that the night of August 8, 1998, what I did is wrong. They should never have to live a life without the sun in his life. They should never have to go a day. Their son, their sibling, their family member. I would
Right.
tell if I could trade places, I would. There's not a day that passes that I don't regret what I did. There's not a day that passes that I do not feel bad for what I did.
All right, you also took Thinking for a Change, Malachi Dad, CPR, Cage Your Rage, Living in Balance, you're a Point Lookout volunteer, so you're still doing community service at the prison.
Yes, sir.
You do attend NA and AA. You have some letters of recommendation for your backing you and wanting you to get out. Warden, what can you tell me about Mr. Ruffin? And also, why is he considered fair when it comes to his institutional record?
Why is it considered what, excuse me?
Fair,
Fair?
yeah, but
Well, he has a total of 47 DB reports, with the last one being, the last Schedule B being the 21 that he talked about, and in his, low court, he had a Rule 4 in 2018 for, disobedience. He's a minimum B. He's assigned to Cypress 1 and he's in the plumbing school, and his Tiger is low.
any other problems, any other recommendations?
No, sir.
That's all the questions.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Freeman. Let's hear from the Parole Project.
Yes, good afternoon. Kerry Myers with the Louisiana Parole Project. Here to let the board know that we have accepted Mr. Ruffins as a client in our program. We've actually, Mr. Ruffins actually contacted us about a year ago. Actually, I was walking through on a tour through the welding school and came across Mr. Ruffins, and we had a conversation. But I had already known about his work. He is certified in welding, also in pesticide. He does have CPR, as I said. He is a Point Lookout volunteer. So he understands what giving back means. We will provide support, transitional housing and support. That also will include, we'll be connecting him transitionally to AANA while he is with us as he's awaiting the approval of his interstate compact to his brother in Texas, where he does have a stable family environment plus employment waiting, mainly because he is skilled and he has that ability. We believe that, Mr. Ruffins has addressed the issues that led him to prison. We believe that he is an excellent client. He would be an excellent client should he get released through this board's actions. We support him through his transition, where he will get the services that he needs. And we will, like I said earlier, as Mr. Freeman asked, we will provide him transitional housing through the time it takes for his interstate compact to be approved. So we just ask this board today to grant him relief today.
Thank you. And before we move to Mr. Nash, I wanted just to make a point of clarification for the record. We mentioned earlier that the victim's mother was opposed, and that is reflected in the pre-parole investigation. But later, I believe she submitted, or there was an victim impact statement, which she says, she asked that the board consider whether incarceration has truly changed the offender. She wonders if he would go back to the same lifestyle and wind up killing again or being killed himself. She didn't give a specific opinion, stating that she's refusing the offender the opportunity at parole won't bring her son back to life. So she didn't offer support. She didn't really offer opposition either. Mr. Joseph Nash, could we hear from you, please?
My name is Joe Nash, and I'm Carl's youngest brother. You know, everyone here has had a bad season in their life, which is why we're here today, to see if there's any difference between who Carl was in '98, but also to acknowledge who Carl has grown to become today. You know, everything from Carl's past has come up. You know, everything that was less than perfect from his past has come up, but allow me to share a side of Carl, the loving side, the positive side, the influential side of Carl that, you know, some of you may not know. I remember being 7 years old and Carl would pick me up and put me on his shoulders, and he'd walk me to and from school almost every day. You know, that's the big brother that all of us look up to. You know, and when I consider Carl being incarcerated and I look at all the things that he's accomplished and everything that he's done, Carl is the epitome of someone who makes the best and the most out of his situation. And because of how much Carl has motivated us through his words of encouragement and his silent inspiration, is why we want to be able to give back to him. So he'll have a great place to stay. He'll have a great paying job at Liberty Healthcare, where he'll be the facility maintenance person there. I've been employed there for 8 years. Zach, he's, part owner in the company. He'll also have transportation to and from any NAAA meeting that he would need. But as I close, I do believe that if Carl is granted release, that once he reenters society, that he will be a successful, productive, law-abiding citizen, not just because of who he's grown to become today, but because of the strong support system that he has backing him, and also a group of accountability partners. But ultimately, man, we love Carl, and we're here to support him.
All right. Thank you, sir. Mr. James Nash.
Yes, I'm James. I'm Carl's younger brother as well. I really think my brother Joseph pretty much laid it out for the most part. It's hard for all of us. All of us are a little nervous. I mean, because of course, we know it's at stake today. But the biggest thing is just we've seen growth and maturity in Carl from the time where he was originally incarcerated to where he is now, and even in our own lives. We've seen that. It's also not as though he has an extensive criminal background. First time felony offender. It's not as though he has this extensive violent background either. And then just lastly, I think I really want to touch on what Angola has been able to offer. I mean, throughout all the programs and the courses and certificates, I couldn't name them all, but I know he's been through a lot. What impresses me the most is the welding certification that he has. Being that we both used to weld, and it's just not, it's not an easy thing to do, even outside in society. So for him to be able to accomplish that has been really, really big. Trying to contain emotion, but at the same time, really, really hoping that the board is able to see how Angola has provided these foundational blocks that's really set them up for life outside of the walls of incarceration and how he truly is been rehabilitated.
All right, thank you. Mr. Ruffins, is there anything you'd like to say to us before we turn it over to your attorney?
I'd like to read something if you don't mind. First, with all the earnest sincerity of my heart, I apologize to the Reed family, to my own family, to society, to this honorable board, to the governor whom I petitioned for clemency. The grief I caused to everyone, it was unnecessary. I am deeply remorseful. And again, I apologize to Miss Lewis, the Reed siblings, to Mr. Reed's children, to Mr. Bertel, to Mr. Cortez Jenkins, Miss Andrea Johnson, Mr. Michael Johnson, Mr. Montgomery Williams, Mr. Jerome Higgins, for all others who I have affected. As much as I empathize, I would never truly understand the enormity of what each of you go through daily. However, I do realize this is not the worst, I do realize this is the worst decision I could ever make. Never will I be able to say enough apologies. I was wrong, I was wrong, I was wrong. I will forever owe a debt to society and redemption to myself. Truly, I regret I did not make better choices. My faulty thinking caused you unimaginable pain. The man I am now wishes I could take it all back. In closing, I am grateful to the Department of Correction for all the programs that they are available to offenders here at Angola. Classes like victim awareness, thinking for a chain cage array, living in balance, were instrumental in my cognitive restructuring. Piece by piece, these classes fostered my change in thinking. Thank you, honorable board members, for the opportunity to be heard, for allowing me to publicly apologize. And finally, I ask the board to grant mercy upon me by committing my life sentence to numbers and parole eligibility. Thank you.
Ms. Hogan.
Thank you, Ms. Renata. This board looks a lot at programs that people have taken to better themselves throughout their incarceration. And I think this board also looks to the insight, the personal insight that people have on the impact that their crimes had, not just to the victims, but also to the community at large. And I think that Carl Ruffins really embodies the insight that he has on what his crime caused, what his actions caused in 1998 is profound. Every single time we've ever discussed what happened in 1998, what he did in 1998, he cannot talk about it without weeping. He's horrified by his own actions, and that insight that he has motivated him to become a completely different person, to take every available course, as well as the ones that were mentioned. Carl participated in multiple programs for the JCs, the Toastmasters, spiritual-based curriculums. He's got certifications in pesticide, welding, currently is in IC3 computer school, and currently is in plumbing school. And although he's a volunteer with Point Lookout, there's also things that he does that he doesn't get certificates for. If there are people that need to be pushed to cafeteria that are wheelchair bound, Carl volunteers to push guys that can't walk. He volunteers to fill sandbags whenever there's a hurricane. If there's anything that is ever needed, Carl is one of the first people to volunteer. And I think that he didn't just take Living in Balance 1 and 2 and get the certificate and, and go about his business. He continues, and he has continued to go to multiple, twice a week, to go to 12-step meetings, because he knows that that was a big contributor to his incarceration with his substance abuse. And he has a remarkable amount of family support. He has an out-of-state plan. If he were to ever be released, he would go through the parole project. He would then go to Texas. He's got wonderful family support. He's got a sobriety plan. He understands the 12 steps are ongoing. He understands that he needs support throughout the rest of his life, and he's committed to that, and his record really demonstrates that. For all of these reasons, he's not returning to the Caddo area. He's going to Baton Rouge, then he would go to Texas. The amount of programs that he has completed and continues to participate in, his work history, his low risk of recidivism, and the growth that has occurred over the last 25 years. Carl was 21 years old when he came to prison. So we would ask, based on all of this, as well as his own genuine remorse that is demonstrated anytime you talk to Carl about what he did in 1998, we would ask this board to commute Carl's sentence to a term of years with the opportunity for release through parole or through good time. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Right, I think the board's prepared to vote. Mr. Freeman?
Yes, ma'am. The hardest thing we have, Carl, is to balance out things. With regards to your rehabilitation, I'm very confident in that. With regards to 25 years for a murder, that's very borderline. But the fact is, I do believe that you are truly sorry for what you have done. You served 25 years, you completed some good programs. You have terrific family support, as we see behind you, and you have the support of the parole project. And for those reasons, I am going to grant your computation today, commute the sentence to 50 years. And I strongly recommend that you, when you get to Texas, that you find a support group and continue on your rehabilitation, and always remember you are a drug addict, 100%. You're not to leave the parole project until interstate compact is completed in Texas.
Yes, sir.
Mrs. Jackson?
Mr. Ruffin, I think you exhibited a high degree of achievement and rehabilitation. Don't know what else you could do that you have not already accomplished over the last 25 years. You have the support of the parole project family that's very able to support you and keep you accountable. So my vote grant 50 years with this recommend commutation of 50 years.
Thank you, Mr. Rush.
Madam Chairman, my vote is the same for the same reasons.
Mr. Marabella?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. My vote likewise is the same for the same reasons.
All right, Mr. Ruffins, I do agree. That's my vote as well. So on your behalf, sir, we'll make the recommendation to Governor Edwards that your sentence be commuted to 50 years. You'd like to.
Thank you.
So let's unpack this. He looks young. We do have some court docs that we can go through, but certainly is interesting to see the different outcomes from trial one, where they say no to, well, trial one to commutation hearing. 1 to 2. Now remember, this is just a recommendation to the governor. The governor has to agree. And then there's a parole hearing afterwards, which we will cover on Mandu, assuming the governor signs off on the commutation. Thank you, Richard, for sharing this. So the facts are is that on August 8th, 1998, to think how long ago that was, the defendant and his brother, Zaniel Jerome Atkins, were passengers in a car driven by friend Montgomery Monty Williams as they drove down Orla Street in Shreveport towards the home of Williams' girlfriend. At about the same time, Donald D.J. Reed, the victim, was entering DuPont Street on his bicycle and was nearly hit by the car which the defendant was a passenger. A brief, non-physical argument ensued between Reed and Williams. So they're driving the car, they're going to his girlfriend. The guy pulls down on a bike, they almost hit them. He probably says, "Hey man, what's your problem?" You know? And a brief non-physical argument ensues, and Williams got back into his car, drove down the street, turned around, returned to Reed's location. This time, when the car passed by Reed, Reed walked up to the passenger side of the car. At that point, the defendant opened the car door, stepped out, and began to fire a .357 Magnum revolver, which is a very big shooter, at the apparently unarmed Reed. Reed turned and began to run. Shortly thereafter, Reed fell to the ground after suffering wounds through the arm, into the chest, and wounds in the back. And then he later left this world in surgery. Now, this is an appeal. I just want to let that set in for a little bit. Here's a guy who's with buddies, going to the girlfriend's house. Here's another guy who's on his bike. I don't think they know each other. They get in a verbal confrontation. He feels so angry enough that he has to turn around the car, get out, and then unload on him. And it's like, why? Just why? What makes someone want to do that? You're so insecure, your ego is so small, you're so angry, you're so pathetic. Life is so cheap. And it's also just cowardly. You know, I don't understand the whole shooting thing. It's like, you want to be a man? Like, all right, go fight it out. Have an equal fight with your fists. One-on-one. Like, what's with the whole, like, I'm going to go whip out a weapon? Like, well, that doesn't make you any, that makes you just, that just proves the point that you're just a little insecure coward. You're not tough. Take down an unarmed person. You're not tough. You're pathetic. You're a coward. It's just so strange how you see this happen all the time. I don't get how it can be glamorized or glorified. Like, why do their peers not look at them and say, dude, you're pathetic. You bring a weapon to what should be a fist fight? That's not cool. That doesn't make our gang look tough. I just don't get it. I don't get why that's a thing. it's like, to me, it's so clearly cowardly. I don't know why anyone could glamorize that type of fighting. I get why fighting happens at a young age. It happens all the time. I've been on the wrong end of a bunch of them, unfortunately. I've never been on the winning end. But there's something about mutual combat when it's fists. It's just manslaughter. Okay, so the defendant was armed in a car with his friend and brother. Reed was alone on a bicycle and unarmed. The defendant went bang bang at Reed 4 or 5 times, even as Reed was running away from the car, falling on the ground. The evidence viewed in light was most favorable to the prosecution indicates that the defendant went bang bang several times at close range with the .357, using sufficient force to cause the departure from this world. Although it is intent question of fact and need not be proven a fact, meaning for circumstances. I don't know what, like, basically when you make an appeal, you're just desperate. Try to come up with anything. While the pictures does show some blood, it's not gruesome and it's prohibitive. They're basically saying that I think showing the pictures was not fair. And then they're saying that the sentence was excessive. In conclusion, they're basically saying, no, you're screwed. You're going to be in prison for life. But you may not be in prison for life. Now, the question I have for you is, how do you feel about this case? I think it's amazing that the victim's mother actually went out of her way to make a statement. What do you think? Does the parole board think? Do you think that he has been rehabilitated and will be a contribution to society? That might be one of the first time we've heard that. It's thoughtful. It's pretty deep there. Do you think that his crime was fake acting? I don't. I think it was real. I think he does feel remorse. And I think he made the best of his time in prison. I think it's like real. I like to remind myself, we do see people that show up and they just, like the person who showed up right before this case. There was, I don't know how much of it had to do with his illness, his age, but there was nothing there. And here there's like light in his eyes. There's his ending speech was all about remorse, all about the victims. Something he said, which I really appreciated, was he never said, I know how the victims feel. On the contrary, he said, I can never know how they feel. It wasn't like a speech like about me, me, me. It was really all about a forgiveness and apology, and not, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. He said 3 times. He has the family support. I mean, I think if there's anyone that would be qualified to get out and who I believe will be successful, this is him. Love to hear your thoughts. Please do the YouTube thing. It really helps the algorithm. And with that, I'll let you go.